Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you how we can go from a state of kind of working with someone who's at an arousal level through to getting some attention, through to focusing on objects, tracking across the screen, responding to voice objects, and playing with a whole bunch of different access methods that would enable us to explore how someone might interact with assistive technology. So to begin with, we have an app running. Nothing's going on. If I move a mouse, it will generate some bubbles stimulating the screen, at which point that might arouse my attention to look at it. And when I do so, now I'm generating the content with my eyes. Now, what we can do here is we can press B on the keyboard to add an object in. So obviously I'm responding to that immediately. And I can just keep adding objects in that are responsive to gaze. So I've set each of the objects right now are set up with a 0.1 second dwell time, so it's just instantly going to interact. I can also say bubble, and the voice command will also bring a bubble into the screen. And I can say pop, and the voice command will also interact with the object. So we can basically be using language to bring in any visuals into any scene at any time, essentially, which can be useful if you're using like visual scenes and things like that to add different context and content into that. So anyway, carrying on with this demo, I'm going to go over to the side here, and I'm going to open up our access menu, and I'm going to choose eyes on switch option, okay, and then I'm going to close that. So I still set up with a 0.1 second dwell time, but as I add in the objects, you'll see that they're not responsive. Because what they now need is switch input. So I've set this up to enter, so you can set this up with a head switch or however you like. But now I have to look at the objects to interact with them. And obviously, being a completist, I need to actually get rid of all of them. We still have all the concurrent access methods. So obviously over on the left, I have my eye gaze. I can bring in a mouse cursor over here. I can switch that up for touch input if I was going to do that. And I can also still use game controller input as well to input us. So we always have 4 concurrent inputs to enable different people to interact in the scene at the same time. The other thing that's interesting about this, in terms of using dwell time or extended dwell time, is that we can go into the idea of kind of like focusing on an object for longer than you ordinarily would, specifically with a dwell function. So I'm going to open up the dwell time. I'm going to use touch here to speed things up. And I'm going to put my dwell time up to 3.7 seconds. So anyone who works in assistive technology field will be thinking 3.7 seconds as a dwell time is beyond what anyone would ever use. Yes, that's entirely true, but what we're now doing is actually using the dwell time for kind of like an attention tool. So what I'll do here, if I say close menu, I can bring in an object into the scene. Let me just double check I've turned off. Okay, so taking off eyes and switch and just going back purely to dwell. You can see now, if I look at this object, that's a 3.7 second dwell time requirement. In the context of using long dwell times, what we're more looking at is the idea of being able to actually discriminate or focus on a specific object for a certain period of time. So obviously here, to interact with it, we would know we would need to look at it for that period of time. And obviously as we start adding more and more complex things into a scene, it's not just kind of this sort of simple figure ground concept. You want people to spend more time observing the scene and focusing and fixating on certain parts of that. So this is a way of using dwell as an attention tool as well as just an activation method. So a whole bunch of different ideas there, and this is kind of how we work with the content within iFX. Everything is kind of all integrated into every app, basically.